which I'm kind of pivoting and we about to wrap up, but I did want to bring this up too. When we talk about, trying to aspire for greatness and having that mentality, we touched on black businesses. We want to support black businesses, but also black businesses have to have a mentality of we want to be great in every sense of the word. Don't support me just because I'm black. I've told people before too, if they see a production that we've produced, I don't want you to say, that's a good production for a black guy to be filming. I want you to just say, that is a good production. Full stop in that. But that's also that mama mentality that we talk about as well too. Now, me and you talked about this earlier. Sometimes we disagree on things.
Yeah, sometimes.
We recently disagreed online.
Yeah, we did. It was the jigging, right?
We disagreed about the jigging.
Yeah.
So before you get out of here, I want to address this because I commented, and people in your comment section, they came at me hard.
Oh yeah, I got some militant followers, man.
now you knowing me. And you having this conversation with me now, I'd probably be dubbed militant as well too.
Yeah, you would.
They called me. They said I was. Let me see. Somebody called me Uncle Tom. Let me see. They said I was just stiff. One person accused me of really being white. They said we don't know where you got that avatar from. You just a white troll. I'm like, no, my page ain't private. Go look at my page.
I'm a real brother.
They were like, no, that's AI. I'm like, bro, really? So I'm bringing this up because, and again, I'm glad that we can display this level of dialogue where people can straight up disagree on something. We come up, we have a conversation, and then we dap each other up afterwards.
Man,
but here's my issue. Here's my issue with the jigging at the ceremony, and I'm saying ceremony for a specific reason. I'm very deliberate with my words. Is a graduation ceremony, not a graduation celebration. And there's a distinction there. And my point with that is this. If we're trying to push that next generation to be great, it's not about not embracing who you are, because I love how you connected the jigging culture with our ancestral roots and pulling that. That is a good connection. But what is the message that we're sending when we say disregard what these people are saying at this ceremony that you're being honored at? At the end of the day, it's not the kids. They don't have ownership over that ceremony. They're the honored guest. And I feel like we're setting them up for failure when we say, nah, just do you. Because at that stage, because people in the comments saying, just let them babies jig. They're no longer babies. Once they have crossed that stage and they have turned that tassel, they are looked at in society as young adults, which means they have to prepare themselves for where everything ain't gonna be to your palate. And if you want to be great, you have to expand your palate, meaning that you're not gonna be able to take everything that makes you comfortable into certain spaces. If you go, if you go get a job, and you know this just from being in the workforce, everything isn't, your elevation in corporate America isn't always based on just your skill set or just your resume. Sometimes it's sociable. Sometimes it's the boss has a good feeling for you, so let's promote this guy because I think he's going to be good, or I think she's going to do well. I think she has good leadership qualities because we invited him over for dinner, and they're a good conversationalist. A lot of times it's not always what you know, it's who you know. Who you know puts you in the room. What you know determines how long you stay there. But I feel like if we have pushed this narrative of disregard that, let them babies just jig, it's their day, they had it hard, we're lowering the bar, I think, for success. Because and let me because I feel you. But what happens when they take that same mentality and they're late for work and they're speeding and they get pulled over? Can they tell the cop, I had a hard day, just let me go? What happens when they go in other spaces? Are people going to care that they had a hard day or a hard year or a hard life they not gonna give a shit about any of that. And we're setting them up for them to act as if life runs on their feelings when it's opposite. So that's my biggest thing, is that I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm from Baton Rouge. By all means, man, jig at your celebration. Yes, that's a great accomplishment. You graduated high school. Do that. Don't never lose who you are. You see the pictures I got on my wall. We've had a long conversation, so I think it's very clear that I ain't trying to be stiff about nothing. But I do have a mentality of, you got to be 10 times better than them just to be considered average. And no one's going to look at you and say, well, you had it hard. I don't want it on a curb. Let me get my own, let me get there, and I'm gonna bust the door open. But I feel like we're setting them up with a certain mentality when we start placating to that. Now that's my opinion.
No, and bro, I think this highlights why it's important for people to talk, right? And not always like in comment sections. Because when I listen to you, man, I 100% agree with you, right? Now, I may look at it from a different perspective, but I'm also a guy that, man, I could even tell you where my paper degree at. I skipped one of my graduations because I had a job interview. Like, I never put a lot of weight into that, but that was a part of the culture I grew up in, right? We were kind of taught, like, man, that's a European ceremony. If you make it, you make it. I think I told a story recently on Facebook, like, man, me and my buddy, my best friend, man, we got into a car accident on the way to graduation because we were late because we had been doing some drinking. So we got into a car accident to graduation, but what was in that bottle was way more important than graduation, right? We were done. We were like, hey, we don't get that. We'll get it tomorrow, Like, so I never personally put a lot of weight into stuff like that. Right. So when I see it, that's the perspective I'm coming from, right? Is that this is a European ceremony. It was never nothing derived in our culture. If you look at our first formal education, you go back to Timbuktu, they didn't even do graduations, right? They did kind of ceremonial things. They looked at more mentorship when you finish, right? You wouldn't go to graduation. You would go to a mentor that would help you transition into your career. Correct. Even in this country, man, normalized graduations within African American culture, you really don't see that until the early 1900s, You could hear some sparsely related stories around 1860, 1867, but it don't really become a thing for us until like 1907, 1908, when you start seeing the formation of Greek organizations and stuff like that. But before then, it was not a thing in our culture, right? My problem with that conversation was not so much of the things that you said, because I do agree, like, it should be organized. I think Alicia Welsh does it well, like the way she does it. Everybody goes across the stage, they finish, then she give them a little time to do their thing, right? It's organized. So when I see a kid get off the stage and then they jig into the chair, I'm like, okay, nobody thought about this. Nobody organized it. So am I supposed to be mad at the kid or the administrator? So that's the first piece. And then the second piece of the problem I have with it is not so much of you being wrong, but it's the rhetoric I see said about these kids, right? Right. And it's the racist rhetoric. It's the rhetoric of just a lack of understanding from folks that may not be of their class, because we got, race and class is a whole different intersect in 2026, right? True. Somebody I look at as like a second mom to me, Shauna Banks. We disagree on this every year, right? Every year we don't speak for a few weeks about this particular issue, right? For a few weeks. She gonna call me, Eugene, what you doing? But I remember one year, man, Jordan, I think my oldest boy, Jordan, I think he was coming out of high school. And we were talking about the jigging thing, and Shauna looks at Jordan, all right, Jordan, your daddy says it's okay to dance across stage. And I looked at, oh, you can't do that at Southern Lab, can you? I'm like, Shauna, that ain't even Jordan swag. But she's like, oh, so you don't want him to dance? I'm like, oh,
Look, I can hear the voice. I can hear the voice.
It's okay for them to dance, but he can't dance, can he? I say, well, I don't think he would do that, right?
Right.
Even my daughter, I don't think she would do that. Now that little Gene, like he
might be a jigger.
he might have a jig, bro.
He might have a little jig in him, right? But man, like my conversation is like responding to what I saw those kids called. And one thing that I learned in my maturation along this journey is that, man, sometimes we just got to stand up for kids.
True.
Whether they're right or wrong, whether it's decorum or not, if we see our kids under attack, man, we just go stand there in the gap. Now, we can fix everything else once we get them. But right now, they just need us in that gap.
And look, I have no problem with defending kids because I don't feel like adults should be targeting kids and talking about them, and I don't agree with none of that. But like you said, we got to still have another conversation on the back end to where, okay, but don't put us in a situation where we got to constantly do something. If the administration have said, okay, look, this is the lineup for the program. And then you go contrary to that because you got parents, I saw it in your comment section too, where they were saying, well, I couldn't even hear my kid's name because it was disruptive before that. And like you were saying, it needs to, be organized. And even just a slight pushback even on the culture aspect. Ceremonies try to be as generic as possible because when you start pulling in other cultural aspects, you don't know how this person may receive it or that person might receive it. That's not being apologetic to a racist who's going to look at anything that's outside of their immediate culture as offensive. But to play devil's advocate, what happens when the son of a white supremacist strolls across stage and throws up a Nazi salute?
You ought to take care of that in the parking lot.
But that's also their culture, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not making an argument for we need more rights for white supremacists. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm playing devil's advocate in that sense of what happens when they take the same argument that we're doing and then they turn it on its head and turn it against us and say, well, it's okay for you to jig, but I can't throw up a Nazi salute. We got to remember too. We as black people understand that the KKK is a terrorist organization. They have not been billed as a terrorist organization by the United States government. So that means they can still call up and have rallies. They can do marches and everything. Have police protection, right? We've seen this happen.
Still legal.
So that is of a culture, right? So when we stand on the argument of culture for us, we can't open Pandora's box for them because their culture would be offensive because the KKK lynched us. The KKK has terrorized black people in this country. So when I see people stand on the argument of, but it's our culture, but it's a ceremony, that's why I was very deliberate with the words. Even when I was responding to people, I was saying it's ceremony versus celebration. The celebration is ours. But if the ceremony is there and we're the honored guest, and we have to, we want our kids, again, to be able to go in all these different spaces. And some of these spaces, time and place. So if you go to a funeral, people are grieving, right? I was just at a funeral last week. People were grieving and everything, but they got a program, right?
You better follow it.
So a woman, passed by the casket and she was just crying, just, oh my God. And I mean, she was loud. And the ushers escorted off to the side. But what if she said, no, this is what I want to do. I want to yell and cry right now. That's against what the program, they still got a program to maintain, do they not? Same thing with graduation, time and place.
No, man, and let me tell you, like, bro, when you look at that, right, you're right in that. There's a certain decorum and etiquette of that particular ceremony, right? And I agree, it should be more organized. I think Ms. Welsh could teach a class on how to do it.
Master class.
And maybe she should do that, right? But when I see a principal screaming at kids or saying, stop, or I'm going to cancel, like, you're the leader. You didn't think about this, right? So my problem is the leader that didn't think about this, didn't think that this was going to happen. You should have known that this was going to be a thing, and you should have organized it better. Because if your kids are still doing it, even though you told them not to do it, then you did something wrong.
But now,
right?
again, are we feeding the kids this narrative of no matter what, we gonna come to your defense? Again, I'm playing devil's advocate with this because when that happens and they say, okay, but if I break the rules, I know my parents gonna come 10 toes down and be like, nope, don't talk. Are we feeding the problem at that point? Are we feeding the gremlin after midnight and getting it wet?
Well, it's not us, right? It's the state government. You can't hold them kids' diploma, not legally, right?
Well, no, and because I mean, even at the graduation, I mean, it's a ceremonial degree. But what I'm saying is, are we feeding that into their impressionable minds? Yes, they are considered young adults, but at 18, come on, man, you still got a kid mentality in a sense. But society is gonna look at them as a young adult once they cross that stage. So in past years, are we feeding them this narrative that if the principal tell you don't do it and you still get up there and do it, I'm gonna then get into the principal's face. I'm gonna be defensive of you because you did something that you weren't supposed to do anyway.
So maybe that is a risk that you run, right? But for me, it's a plausible risk. And when I say that, man, we got to look at education as a whole, right? Man, we look at Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge, historically, when you talk about DSEG, this was the button for a lot of different things that happen around DSEG. People forget that about Baton Rouge, right? DSEG in itself was an experiment that started here first, right?
Right.
You're looking at the longest standing DSEG case in the history of our country,
I
right
grew
here in
up
Baton Rouge.
seeing it on the news, and I ain't that old.
Do you remember seeing that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I ain't that old, right? And I remember, right?
We in the same age group. I remember
saw
my parents having the 5 o'clock news on, and because I didn't even know what it was at first. I just remember they would always. I remember it was Andrea Clessy on the news. She was like, the latest desegregation. I'm like, dang, what is desegregation? I hear about it every day.
George Eames, right? George Eames was the historic president of NAACP. I often tell folks he was the last black man with real power, right? George Eames would keep a copy of the DSEG order in his back pocket. And when he went into meetings, if they didn't give him what he wanted, he would put that DSEG order on the table. Because he knew that could get him whatever he wanted for our community. The last black man with real power was George Eames. And you'll never see his name on any school because he trained some people that sold him out too, right?
Of course. We've seen the movie before.
Yeah, but George Eames, if you don't know that name, study it. Like, he was the last black man with real power. And he gave the NAACP specific orders before they forced him out, right? Never settle this case. He told them, never settle this case. If you settle this case, you'll never get the school system back. And I bring up that DSEG order because DSEG in itself wasn't implemented the way that it was supposed to be implemented. We look at magnet schools, right? And I'm guilty of this. My daughter is attending Baton Rouge High next year, right? Mm-hmm. She's going to be the first kid I've ever had in public school, right? And I'm a little nervous about that because she's been in an all-black school her entire educational career. So now I'm in a position where I got to explain to her, like, hey, baby, next year you might hear nigga and it ain't gonna be from one of y'all. like I'm having to break that down for her, like, hey, this is going to be a little bit of a different culture.
Right.
And bro, I hate that she's doing it, but this is what she wants to do, and I don't want to stop her or put my beliefs too far on her, right?
Well, and just to kind of, piggyback off of that, her coming from an all-black school and her being raised by someone like you, I think that she has the tools to properly navigate that situation and potentially change a few people's minds.
I hope so, man. If not, somebody gonna popping them off. but I hope you're right about that. But and I bring that up to say, man, when you look at DSEG, right, what magnet schools were supposed to do was actually take black kids and catch them up to be on par with the kids in the regular system, right?
Right.
But then white parents start pulling their kids out of school systems and creating their own private schools, right? So you see this white flight, you see schools like Bishop Sullivan and Parkview pop up and stuff like that. So as a result, they negotiated some of these magnet schools to almost become semi-private schools for a certain population of folks, right?
Yep.
And I say all this while my daughter's enrolled to go there next year, right? So like I'm a part of the problem. So I'm just putting it out there, right? And I know better.
You can't help but to be honest, can you?
I'm just telling you, I'm honest, right? You gonna find me. If I did it, I'm gonna tell you, like, yeah, I did that. I messed up.
You ain't never lied, boy.
I ain't never lied. You might not agree, but I told you the truth, right? But, that was the intentions of that system. And because of that, we gave up schools that we owned, where we controlled the culture, right? And our kids actually perform better at these schools. Brother Malcolm said only a fool will let his enemy educate his child, right? So when we look at what our kids are doing or whatever part of the culture we feel is broken, it's because we allowed it to break, right? The NAACP settled the DSAG case, and there was no accountability there, even though your great president told you, don't do it, right?
Right.
And if you ask people, they're going to tell you, well, man, we fought a case for 60 years. Y'all don't know what that was like, and we got tired. Like, it was time to settle the case. But what we've seen since that case was settled was educational attainment for black kids have went down every year, just about, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing some improvements now, right? But for a long time, this is all you saw.
It was skyrocket. Yeah, I mean, not skyrocket. It was nosedive.
It was nosedive. Everything that George Eames told us would happen played out. But we want to blame the kids from the results of what we see, of what our leaders failed to hold their system accountable on, right? And I ain't telling you nothing that, I used to sit in my office at the NAACP and read the DSEG order to see where we failed Baton Rouge. We were never supposed to settle that case. And we did. We were supposed to control what some things look like in the school system. The arguments that we have today, we would not be having if somebody at the NAACP still had that DSEG order in their back pocket.
If we had a proper seat at the table.
A proper seat at the table. And that's what the DSEG order gave us, a proper seat at the table. Because we gave up institutions that we owned to be a part of these institutions and cultures that we own to be a part of this culture. And now we're telling kids that got it in their DNA to do something different, not to do something different with no explanation. I don't blame the kid for being miseducated. I blame the adult, right? So because of that, I have been defensive since the very beginning when it comes to kids and jigging. And let me tell you, I got to give the proper credit to who really taught me the culture and history around jigging, and that, Byron Washington, who is an astute historian here in Baton Rouge. And he was like, Gene, if you read some old writings, you can see jigging was being done in slavery, and it actually comes from the Senegal region. It's probably the Saba days. Like Byron Washington educated me on that, and I started looking at it, looking at some videos from the region. I'm like, okay, that is jigging, right? So he was the first person that educated me on it, and then you start listening to the folks that actually coined the term jigging. They're like, well, we picked it up from church. It was just kind of like something we saw in church. But the church picked it up from slave culture, right?
Absolutely.
And the slave culture picked it up from this person. So you can track it back historically. And this is the other thing, and you know this because we're in the same age group, right? Because people are like, oh, we've been jigging since the 90s. Nah. That ain't what we were doing. We were jigging, but that wasn't it.
Nah.
What these kids are doing is way different than what we were doing.
Way different.
I could jig in the 90s because that was just like, you know what I'm saying?
that was a little shoulder movement.
That was all. I can't do what these kids
this is aerobics.
It's different. What these kids do resemble the Saba dance. What we were doing was something completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. It was not what these kids are doing. And I know like old folks don't want to say that because they want to make these kids pretend that we could dance like them. We could not.
No,
that is not what we were doing.
That was not what we were doing at all. Wasn't the same movement or any of that.
This is something different, right? And I think the ancestors are at play there, right? But at the same time, I can agree with you when it comes to like having it being more organized. Because I don't want to, somebody to go to a graduation. That's an important moment for them, and they miss their kid name being called. But I don't want to blame the kid for that. I want to blame the administrators that actually planned the program
and didn't organize that well enough to say, well, you know what, these kids gonna do this anyway, so let's just build a section at the end where they can do it together, do it organized.
But
whatever kids don't want to do it.
But also, too, even again, adults, the young adults, because I'm against calling them kids because of how I know society will view them.
That's fair.
So I'm gonna, I'm always gonna. Once you're 18, you're considered a young adult at that point. You can legally vote. You can buy cigarettes. You can't legally buy alcohol. I don't understand that. You can go sign up for the army, but you can't do the other stuff. Whatever.
It's a cultural thing.
But you look at it as if they're young adults, they're not full adults, meaning that they still need the proper guidance. And guidance comes from who is leading them at that point, which is us. So you can't, my opinion, you can't have the thought process of, well, they're gonna do it anyway. So, but you still got to have certain rules in place, and that's why I always say it's ceremony versus celebration. If this is billed as a ceremony, then it's still on us to say, okay, but that's what this is right now. I get you want to jig. If they're gonna have a time when the ceremony has concluded and now it's a celebration, cool. But I don't agree with the whole thing of they gonna do it anyway or disregard the vibe of the ceremony to just do individually you. Because my opinion, I think we're setting them up to have a certain mindset at that point that, okay, I can disregard what's been laid out for me and do it this way, and people are just gonna understand, and they're gonna have to just deal with it, because then you start creating little assholes in the world.
Too many of them.
To where, just succumb to my feelings for the day. It don't matter what the societal norm is, or then we become the people of, we're in public spaces, and why they don't know how to act? Well, because we didn't put up any. There's guardrails and everywhere. Unless you own everything, then there's gonna be some type of guardrail there. If I don't own the mall, and they say, well, you got to have a certain, attire to get into a restaurant or the mall or whatever.
You gotta follow the rules.
So we can't put it all on culture. I used this example in the comments. I said, a nudist can say, okay, this is my culture. Can they then go out in public and practice their culture where it's not accepted? Or would they be arrested for indecent exposure? If I'm a nudist, I can't go to the mall practicing my nudist culture, can I?
Depending on what you look like, man. You might want to see some of them. I don't know.
Possibly.
You got Meg in there walking around, man.
Yeah, she can practice every day. That's cool. If Meg want to practice nudist culture, I don't see anybody complaining.
No, but man, I get what you're saying though, man, and I think it's a delicate balance, right?
And that's not to rain on their parade, because
no,
again,
not.
I'm not this old fogey. I really am a black man. I'm not a white man trolling y'all with an AI avatar. But I see, for me, my problem is, I guess I look at what's the bigger picture in this, and what's down the road. This is a moment, but is it going to trigger a mindset in them following this?
You mean well for them, right? And even if I can't agree with you, right? You mean well for them. One thing that I did in my career, right? And I tell you, I'm different, right? I was the guy that skipped graduation.
Oh, you
right?
got layers to you.
Yeah, it's different, right? It's different, man. I wore this African chain around my neck for years, right? And folks often ask, like, man, I see you took the chain off. Man, the only reason I did because my son asked for it. After one of them things I was working on, he asked me, could he have it, right? And your son asked you for something like that.
Well, first of all, that's going to tug on your heartstring right there.
Yeah, so I gave it to him, and it meant something to me, so it's never been like, go buy another one. That means something to me. So when he asked for it, it meant something that he asked for. I'm like, okay, man, all this, like, you saw it, right?
Right.
But man, I was an executive, in state government.
Then I went to work for the largest standing SD clinic in the region and directed it. And every interview I ever did as the president of NAACP, I wore that chain, right? And it was to send a message that, I can celebrate my culture and still stand in spaces where nobody in my family has stood in because I'm good at it.
Right.
And it meant something to be able to do that and still be uniquely me in those environments, right? So I've seen it kind of work both ways. Now, I will say I was an anomaly. I was the only dude there with an African chain on his neck, right? And there were some people in the room that couldn't afford to have the African chain on, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
So I'm not saying that's for everybody.
Right.
But every now and again it does work, right? But in the same sense, I do understand what you're saying. Like, you want the best for these kids. You want them placed in the best environment. But I will say, like, I think sometimes we got to listen to these kids too, because in reality, there's 26 administrators at the graduation, if that, probably less. And there's 200-300 graduates, 600 in a big school, right? Ain't nothing you can do to stop those kids from doing what they want to do if they got together and decided they wanted to do it. And that's where I really think we're headed, where kids are going to say, this is our graduation, and we're going to do this. And one of them kids amongst them, going to be like, hey, I can lead us. We got the numbers. And that's all you take. And then when we find that kid, we need to get that joker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he got leadership qualities.
We need to go get
him.
He
or she has leadership qualities. Please recruit them.
But they got the numbers. So at some point, we got to bring them in and have a conversation with them about what their ceremony looks like. Because maybe that's the thing. The ceremony doesn't need to look like what it looked like for us. Maybe these kids want something different. Because what I fear is that these kids are going to decide, well, you know what? I don't even want to go to that graduation. That ain't for us. Or what, man, I might make it, may not, right? Those are things that I think matters in the course of this conversation, that we bring them in and have them be a part of this conversation.
Right.
I see even a task force is being established. Make sure kids are on that task force, right? But I do get what you're saying. And I will say, like, I saw somebody, they flipped off a stage, missed a step, and hit their head. Like, I'm damn near knocked their dumb ass out, right? Yeah. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, yeah, that's too much. But when you let it go, stuff like that happens, right? So I am for it, but I do think it needs to be more organized.
And I'll say this too: it's not that I just want them to be in the best spaces. I want them to be able to be the generation that creates the spaces, that are truly in charge and own the spaces. Yeah. So that way, these conversations don't happen. Like I said, they could redefine what a ceremony is if they own it.
Man,
so that's what I'm looking at as well too. I'm not speaking in terms of, tuck your chain in. I'm saying own the space to where your chain can always stay out and can't nobody tell you nothing no way. Own your own Baton Rouge high school. That's what I'm looking. What's the equivalent of that? So that's what I'm looking at is I want this but they got to understand it's bigger than just what your current palette is. But in order to get to that space, you got to have that certain mindset. So that way you can look back and say, when I was a kid, or when I was a young adult graduating, they made a big deal out of jigging. I'm going to make it my mission to where we're going to own our own schools. We're going to make sure that we have crafted out a way to where now the school board is more reflective of us. Start looking at it from that perspective. It ain't me raining on the parade. It's me saying, think bigger, get to the level to where you own it, to where this ain't even a conversation no more. That's my point.
And I get that, man. But I'm gonna tell you, bro, this ain't even a pushback. But I think that you probably believe this too, right? Man, I love this generation, right?
Right.
Man, I tell folks all the time, even if they laugh at me, this is our warrior generation, because they don't give a damn. Like, bro, if we could ever find a way to put that in a bottle and cultivate it, and really push it in the right direction, man, they gonna be who really change stuff, right?
I told you we're in that reset mode.
We are, bro, because when you look at them, bro, man, if it walk like a duck, if it quack like a duck, it's a duck.
Right.
with us, we start seeing eagles and shit, right?
Or start saying, well, it's nuance. They be like, nah, that's a duck, homie.
That's a duck. These kids see a duck, right? And not only that, man, like they are really honed into what we call freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that we just get them in culture that, man, they gonna be dangerous, man. Because even if we talk group or gang or whatever, right? Whatever you want to call it, people like put down the guns. Like, man, I'll tell you, man, they ain't always what we need. We need soldiers.
No, we need to teach them how to use the gun.
Bingo.
Because look, I learned how to shoot when I was 7.
Yeah.
Rifles. I mean, my dad's a sharpshooter, Marine, MP.
So you learned early.
So yeah, I learned how to shoot and play chess and read. Like I'm a bit advanced on that. I didn't realize that I was being trained. I thought I was spending time with my dad.
Nah, he's prepared.
This man is training me at this point. So that's my mindset is I want them to get to the point to where it's not a conversation. Mm-hmm. You spoke about your daughter going to Baton Rouge High. She's going to walk in with a certain confidence because she's been educated around everyone who looks like her. So she's already confident. Mm-hmm. She's not going to feel the pressure of being the only black kid in the class. None of that's going to matter at that point because she's been around her people for this long. And then she had you as a father. So I think your daughter's going to probably change a few things.
She will. And man, I'm going to be honest with you too, man. That's also my fear, right? Because and you know this, right? And I hate to even say this in front of the ladies in the room, but you got a daughter or a son?
I don't have either.
You don't have either yet, right? But man, sometimes, man, you see stuff in your girl that you really wanted in your boy, right? Yeah. So like my boys, man, look, Jordan is in that engineering vein. He want to make money. Mm-hmm. Lil Gene in there trying to make beats, and he want to make money. If it's one kid that I could say will probably follow what I've done, it's her, right? and it ain't what I want for her at all. Like I'm trying to actually steer her away from that, and that's clearly where she going.
So, like you said too, maybe she can find a different way to do it, to where she can find that happy medium.
Oh man, she already is, man. Because you talk about you disagreeing with me, man. Every time I say something, Malia, Daddy, why did you say that? I'm just like, hey, I'm the daddy. You shouldn't have said it like that, Daddy. You can say it like this. You can soften it up. I'm like, so like literally, she has been somebody since she's been old enough now that's been very critical of sometimes of the things I say or even my work, right? And I know it's just that she's walking in a female advocacy space that is sometimes different than this masculine advocacy space, and I'm seeing it in my daughter. So when I have women that publicly disagree with me, I already know how the argument coming because Malia do it, right?
She tested it.
She is like the model for it.
Eugene, I greatly appreciate you coming through, man. This has been an excellent conversation. And again, I just appreciate you coming through, giving us your time, your knowledge and your wisdom, and your know-how, and peeling the curtain back a little bit on a few things for us too. So I greatly appreciate you, man.
Oh man, I had a good time here, man. We've been here 2 hours now, man. So
I ain't even know it's been that long, man.
It's probably because we're supposed to been doing this. That's probably what it is, man. So
greatly appreciate it, man. Thank you again for coming through. This ain't gonna be our last conversation either. So greatly appreciate you. Thank y'all for watching, listening, and remember, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. You decide. We out.